a 200 IQ. Christopher Langan is often cited as having one of the highest IQs ever recorded. Look at that, 195 to 210. And he developed this CTMU cognitive theoretic model of the universe. So let's punch that in and see if you didn't know, if it didn't say on every video that you watched of him that this man has over a 200 IQ, would you listen? So we're going to go over this a little bit. And we're also going to kind of look into this whole eugenics IQ. It seems to be very existential, right? Seems to be dealing with probabilities of shapes and patterns that use the process of elimination. And obviously these people can do this on a higher scale. And you wonder just how much they can tell you about your world or your universe, right? So we have, all right, the CTMU, cognitive theoretic model of the universe, is Christopher Langan's attempt to create a unified theory of reality. It's extremely dense and complex, but I'll break it down simply. Not that he ever would, right? Reality and mind are fundamentally linked. Reality is self-processing, like a mind thinking itself into existence. The universe is not just a physical thing, it's also a kind of logical structure, a self-configuring, self-processing language. Mind and reality are two sides of the same coin. Consciousness isn't inside the universe. Consciousness is a fundamental part of the universe. The universe is reflexive, meaning it refers to and changes itself internally, like a mind being aware of its own thoughts. And I'll show you something else and ask you if you think there is a huge similarity and if it might answer even more questions. It will be for Sousa, or Zeus as it's spelled, German, and then we have Turing, Alan Turing. We're going to look at what their postulates are on reality in the form of looking into these computational machines like the Turing machine. And Sousa was he predated Alan Turing. He was doing this in the mid 1930s, putting these computational systems together. Key ideas inside CTMU, SCSPL, self-configuring, self-processing language. Reality behaves like a language that builds and evolves itself. Telic, I've heard him say that before in interviews, but it's been a little while. Recursion. Reality is telic. Teleological, I would think. Purpose-driven. Yes, it is. It recursively creates itself in pursuit of a final cause or purpose. So it lives more. That's what teleology is based upon, if you want to know the connection there. Reality principle. Reality must contain everything that's necessary for it to exist, including the rules that generate itself. So a lot of this, deals with things that were discussed by Kant many, many years ago in his searching and looking at really what he was describing as a computational system between phenomenon and noumenon, right? That which exists outside of you. And you'd be hard-pressed not to compare that directly to a priori, right? In short, CTMU argues that reality is a kind of giant self-aware, self-generating thought or language, and human consciousness mirrors that structure. Yeah, he's basically regurgitating what I've heard said by many different people. It's very philosophical and mixes science, metaphysics, and formal logic. Some people see it as brilliant, others find it too abstract to be useful. Would you like a real-world example? No, I don't, because you can go look him up. In fact, I think Kurt Jaimungal did some interviews with him a couple of years ago. The highest IQ female. and I know who this is. Um, it's Marilyn Vos Savant, and what she does is she actually writes like Dear Abby articles. Like she's been grinded for this quite a bit. She's officially listed in the Guinness Book of World Records for the highest IQ reported at 228. So my postulation here, and then we have Edith Stein. Oh yeah, she produced something that was, she was looking into a Stern. I'm sorry, I was thinking Edith. Is it Edith Stern? Edith Stern phenomena. I was going to put phenomenology, but it gets it. Is a pretty incredible figure, though not as pop culture famous as Marilyn Vos Savant. She's considered one of the most remarkable prodigies in history. Born in 1952, her father, Boris Stern, a Holocaust survivor and engineer, deliberately raised her to be a genius basically from birth. By age 1, she could identify letters from the alphabet. And my son, around 1 or 2, was counting. He's extremely high IQ. He's a sci-fi writer now, and he actually counted all the way up to something like 20 when he was like around not even 2 years old. So it was pretty impressive, actually. She could identify letters of the alphabet. By age 2, she could perform math at a college level. By age 5, she was reading Encyclopedia Britannica volumes as light reading. By age 12, she had completed college coursework and begun lecturing at universities. She earned her first college degree at 15, then pursued graduate studies in mathematics. I find it ironic that Chris Langan would be studying this system, computation system that downloaded information into his head, allowed him to achieve this high IQ so that he could proselytize things to the nature of this rhetoric of leading them back into the very thing that sparked and spurred this so-called genius within him, because I don't see these other people as producing much, especially him. He's regurgitating a lot of ideas that have been thought through more clearly, and I have taken deeper dives into that. Her IQ is estimated at over 200. Some sources suggest even above 210, but it's hard to verify precisely because different tests were used. Phenomena about Edith Stern. I'm sorry. My eyes are bad. She's often discussed not just for raw mental power, but for the engineering of her childhood. Her intelligence was cultivated intentionally by extreme methods, lots of early pressure, strict study routines. She later became a high-level mathematician and inventor, working for IBM. Oh boy. She helped develop technology related to telecommunications and elder care automation, smart tech for helping elderly people live independently. Yeah, do you see this? Like, you wonder what's going on? Like, what have they really done with this amassment of intelligence quotient? So I really wanted to take this to another. So we're going to look into Zusa, Turing, universal models. And tell me if this doesn't sound a great deal like what Chris Langan was talking about. So we have Konrad Zuse, or Zeus if you want to pronounce it that way, but it's pronounced Zuse, and Alan Turing, both independently touched on the idea that the universe itself could be seen as a kind of computer in different ways. Konrad Zuse, Zeus's thesis, Calculating Space. In 1969, Konrad Zuse, a German engineer and early computer pioneer, wrote Reikender Raum, Calculating Space. His main idea, the universe is being computed at the most fundamental level. Space-time itself might be based on discrete binary operations, kind of like a giant cellular automation. Think very complex dynamic on-off pixel grids, right? So that already that's getting more in depth than Chris Langan's model. In short, reality is not continuous like traditional physics says, it's digital. So this gives you something to work with underneath, like a vast computer simulating its own evolution. That's kind of the dichotomy that I just spoke of with Chris Langan, where here he is, he's being given these digits in the form of a high IQ, and he's not even showing reverence back to the fact that it is a digital state, a computational system. He fails to even call it that, right? Alan Turing machines and computable universe. In 1936, Turing invented the idea of a Turing machine, a simple abstract machine that could perform any computation that can be algorithmically defined. A universal Turing machine, UTM, can simulate any other Turing machine, making it a model for general purpose computation like today's computers. This is in the 1940s, mind you. Philosophers later asked, if the universe follows fixed laws, could the universe itself be thought of as a computation? I don't know why they're saying computation. I mean, it's a computational system, a computer, right? That a UTM could simulate. In this sense, Turing's ideas set the foundation for thinking that if reality obeys fixed rules, those rules might be computable, meaning our whole universe could, in theory, be simulated by a computer. So basically, the basic idea here is Konrad Zuse, the universe is a digital computation, 1969, right? Did they get that right? Reality is a giant running program. No, I think that he was coming up with this long before that, because Konrad Zuse actually developed the Z1 back in like 1936. Alan Turing, oh, they are obscuring this. Yeah, it didn't come along till the 1940s. This is bad information right here. Yeah, this is brainwash right here, folks, right in front of you. I urge you to go look at the reading that I did of nuking the Matrix. I took that off an article that Jason Giorgiani wrote on Substack, and it's very interesting, okay? But here it says, Alan Turing, any rule-based system is computable. 1936, if reality follows rules, it's computable. And those dates are more like 1936 for Zuse, right? And more like 1942 to 43, maybe even a little bit later with Alan Turing. So, but he was positing and posturing I believe, his own independent research and findings. I don't think that he was mimicking Zuse. Together, they laid the groundwork for digital physics, the theory that reality is, at heart, information processing, right? So you have some other people down here. And let's look into that and see if anything comes up on that. So Jason Riza, Giorgiani, nuking the Matrix. Let's see what comes up here. Because it'd be nice to take you right to the end of that article. So, you're diving deep now. Jason Riza Giorgiani has a really wild and provocative set of ideas about nuking the Matrix, especially in his books like Prometheus and Atlas and World State of Emergency. I don't think it's going to be pulling that up. The Matrix, Giorgiani, isn't just technology like in the movie. It's the entire false world order built by secret elites, religious dogmas, academic censorship, and technological oppression. And I'm sure that Jason Riza Giorgiani's IQ has got to be way up there himself, but that's not really what defines somebody's contribution to a higher state of thought, you see, and that's the whole point here, is that these people could have a 400 IQ, and it doesn't. When you're talking about determinism, when you're talking about a more existential view, they live more in this world that is what this postures right here, that is a lie that is held before us, a digitized lie, if you will, sort of like a trap of an entropy trap to be able to consolidate information and then to be able to redisperse that through cyclical directives, right? Of these cycles, like these ice ages, the Younger Dryas, and then to be able to recirculate that as if it's like a big mesh or spider web even. Nuking it means a total revolution, not just political, but ontological, changing the very structure. And what he alludes to that she did not pull up, but this is very interesting. You can see his belief systems, but we're going to go on to Substack. Okay, Jason Giorgiani. Let's see what happens here. Reclaiming the fire. It doesn't look like it has it yet, but let's try it. Okay, so here's the plant science. Let's see if we can get onto his, and we're going to go into reads, right? So this kind of shows you how to get into this. And wow, okay. Where is it? Where is it? Plant science. Let's take a look here. Well, this is my Substack anyway. Let's take a look in here. Let's see if we go in from accessing it from the front here. There it is. I pushed the wrong button. So you can see here Zeus's claims here, right? But I just wanted you to look into the actual. Let's read a couple of the. Let's read some of this bizarre stuff here. Let's go off trail, off topic a little bit, but that's where it is. I urge you to go in and look at it. I actually put a comment up here. Here, genius is actual laziness in recruitment, and good and evil are a default trap. Deception works if you don't care. However, attacking you and killing you off also serves its purpose. If there is no internal resistance, no guilt, you expend minimal energy and capture maximal input. However, the guilt of being eaten up from within serves a purpose, right? So that's kind of what he was talking about there, but let me get into this because this is very interesting. And I want to read this because this is about Miss Markham and Mr. Janus. And this is straight up creepy. Mark him Janus. Sir Peter Horsley was, in 1954, the personal equerry, and that's kind of like an assistant, right? A very high qualified assistant to the royals, to the Duke of Edinburgh, and prior to that, equerry to the Princess Princess Elizabeth before she ascended the throne as Queen of the United Kingdom. A combat pilot, a high-level Royal Air Force officer, and eventually Deputy Commander-in-Chief of British Strike Command, the man literally had his finger on the nuclear button. It was precisely because of this that he was targeted for contact by two Nordics who called themselves Mrs. Markham and Mr. Janus. That's interesting that she calls herself Mrs., right? As if she's married or could be married, because I will go on here. The contact was initiated through the inner sanctum of the British security state. Horsley was approached by General Martin and Sir Arthur Barrett, two individuals intimately connected to the royal household and military intelligence apparatus, who introduced him to a curious woman known as Mrs. Markham. Her demeanor was described as emotionless, her speech almost mechanical, her appearance strangely vampiric. She arrived at Horsley's apartment one evening dressed in black, a floor-length dress, and dark heels. She spoke with a flat tone, barely emoting, and her skin was pale and lifeless. Sound like some other people, like the men in black had been described? The subject of their conversation was urgent and sharply political: nuclear weapons. Mrs. Markham explained, or rather announced, that she was part of a group of visitors concerned about the atomic weapons development on Earth. She wanted Horsley to come aboard with their program of planetary nuclear disarmament. This was not a vague plea for peace, but a direct request that someone at the highest levels of Britain's nuclear command structure align himself with an otherworldly political directive. At this point, Horsley began to resist. He pointed out quite rationally that if Earth were disarmed or atomic weapons, the planet might become more vulnerable, not less, especially if the visitors were not entirely benevolent. It is at this moment that Mrs. Markham revealed a sliver of what lay beneath her placid surface. She offered no rebuttal, only a slight wry smile, as if acknowledging the cunning of a worthy opponent. A smile that, in its cold ambiguity, confirmed the very suspicion that Horsley had articulated, that disarmament was not for our safety, but for their control. Bizarre, right? Still, Horsley agreed to follow up meeting. He was invited to Mrs. Markham's apartment on Smith Street in Chelsea, where he was introduced to the man who called himself Mr. Janus. And it gets into that. The name is not accidental. Janus, the two-faced god of Rome, guardian of thresholds and transitions, Janus and Horsley sat by the fire and had a long conversation, again centered on nuclear weapons and disarmament. But here's the detail that shatters any innocent interpretation of the encounter. Mr. Janus seemed to know all of Britain's top secret nuclear information. Horsley, rightly disturbed, launched an M15 investigation. It was discovered that Mrs. Markham had suddenly and completely vacated her apartment. Mr. Janus was never seen again. The sudden disappearance of Mrs. Markham and the vanishing without a trace of Mr. Janus signal the withdrawal of any intelligence operating at the threshold of the matrix itself. The visitors do not make contact randomly. They target figures with command over the most entropic keys to reality, those with their fingers on the nuclear trigger. And their message is always the same: disarm. But why? Maybe because nuclear weapons risk more than planetary extinction. Do they risk epistemic exposure? Do they threaten to destabilize the simulation by forcing anomalies into visibility, revealing the threads of the computational web that binds our experience of space-time? So you can read on to this article, but I am just pointing out some simple facts here about universal constructs, universal models, and sort of this IQ idea or ideology of supremacy, where in fact you don't see these people with ultra high IQs rising to levels of power and control, right? Nor do they even try to influence people to a level that deviates them, right? Like Chris Langan, he's really drawing people back in. Like with all that intelligence, you'd think he'd be doing something greater with it, but he's drawing them back into a lot of Kant's assertions, even Heidegger, with design, and then you could get into the world of the world is my idea, the world is reason. There's it just